Okay, the first presenter for today talking on the topic presentations in allied dental education in the person of Mrs. Eneojo, a member, Orapo College of Scholars. She's a board-certified dental therapist, a health promotion expert, an educational administrator, a lecturer, and a researcher with undergraduate and postgraduate qualifications focused on health promotion and educational management. She has received additional training in systemic review and research synthesis, integrated disease prevention and control, personal and management skills, and computer skills. She's presently at a facility at ORAPOSIUM. So let's make welcome the presenter for today, Mrs. Eneojo. She'll be speaking on the topic, presentations in allied dental education. You're welcome, ma. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Like you heard what I was talking all along?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Can anyone hear me now?
The net is so bad this morning.
Our presenter
Hello,
for
everyone.
today. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, moderator. Good morning, everyone. I'm super excited to have you all logged in this morning. And I want to thank you for your time, for taking out time to be here this morning. And today I'll be talking on presentations in allied dental education. And here is my presentation outline. I'll start by introducing the concepts, talk about presentation software, Microsoft PowerPoint, the rules or tips that we have to bear in mind before or as we are preparing our presentation, then conclusion and references. And presentation is a speech or talk in which a new product, idea, information, or piece of work is shown and explained to the audience. But what we're talking about today is presentation in allied dental education, and it has to do with scientific speech or talk in which an academic idea, information, or research report is being given to a group of allied dental students. And allied dental students are students who are being trained or mentored to be dental therapists, hygienists, technologists, technicians, dental nurses, dental assistants, and so on. So in the training of allied dental students, academic presentation is unavoidable because the lecturer must teach or lecture. The student at one point in time will present their seminar or project reports, and the oral health professionals will give their talks, conferences, seminars, symposiums, or ORAPOSIUMs like ours. Webinars must be attended, and in all these activities, presentation is done. Presentation is unavoidable. So in the next slide, we'll be seeing pictures of presentation in class, conference, maybe symposium, seminar, and the rest. These are different presentation. This kind of presentation can take place in class, seminar, or symposium. And the current situation of presentation now, as we all know, as a result of COVID-19, many are schooling and working from home. Okay. So before I go into what I want to really talk about, a professor once said that presentation should not only be about standing in the class and talking. There should be combination of other elements that are non-verbal, elements that are visual, bringing scenarios, demonstrations, the use of slides, and most importantly, having the skills of knowing how to combine and use all together in order to achieve learning. So I want to go into presentation software. This is what will help you and I to be able to, bring in other elements that will aid in the understanding of our students. So presentation software, these are computer application programs that has been designed to allow the lecturer to present information in an engaging way, using text, pictures, sounds, videos, and so on and so forth. So here you can see the different examples of presentation software as listed on the slide. We have the Apple Keynote, the Slide Beam, the Google Slide, the Zoho Show, Microsoft, so many of them. But we'll be concentrating more on Microsoft PowerPoint. And before I even start talking about Microsoft PowerPoint, I want us to understand how important it is that we bring in this thing into teaching. It is important because if you will take your mind back to your day, the lectures you have attended in your lifetime, you will discover that so many times some lecturers, when they come into the class, they veer off the main topic. They start talking about unrelated issues. Why? Maybe because they are cut off, they don't know how to connect to what they are saying and all that, and so on and so forth. So this helps. Okay. So we'll be concentrating on, I will talk more on Microsoft PowerPoint. I'm concentrating on Microsoft PowerPoint because it is the most common and the most popular presentation software. Why is it so? It's so because of how easy it is to combine and manipulate the different features listed on the slide. So as a lecturer, as a presenter, it will help you to organize the contents of your contents, the contents of your lecture, your thoughts, and the structure and duration of your lecture. It helps you and your class to stay focused and ensure you maintain and sustain the attention of the class. So in the next slide, we'll be considering some tips or rules in preparing our presentation using PowerPoint. What you have to bear in mind as you're putting your presentation together, putting your lecture together to present. Okay. So what those things you have to bear in mind as you prepare your slide. The first one is that you don't give your presentation, you don't give your slide a center stage. What makes the slide to take center stage? As we go on, you will understand what I mean by that. Okay, but what will make a slide to have a center stage is when the slide is full of words. Full of words. Your slide is crowded. And when your slide is crowded, what happens? You see that the student and the lecturer will be struggling to make meaning out of the slide. So the second one is to create a logical flow. What helps you to create a logical flow is your presentation outline. It helps you to, you create your lecture in such a way that you'll be able to move from point to point logically. That it helps you to give a well-structured lecture. Okay, you'll be able to move from one point to the other, and it helps you, to avoid bringing in irrelevant points or topic or issues into your lecture. So you have to make sure that your presentation slide is down. Another thing is to ensure that your slide is readable. Your slide is readable when you take into consideration the color of your font, the style of your font, the size of your font, the background color of the slide. So these are the things that you have to have at the back of your mind as you're doing this. Remember, if you are the type that goes to YouTube to listen to lecture, you see some important, beautiful lectures, but you can't make anything out of the slide of the presenter because the person did not take into consideration all these things I've talked about. Then less is better. It is better when you're preparing your slides that the number is less. The sound is, there's no need for sound unless you know it's very necessary in what you're talking about. Then animations, they are good. The number of slides should be less, but it depends. As a lecturer, if you're supposed to stay in the class for 2 hours, you should know that you should be able to put up points in the slides that will keep you up to, for you to be able to stay for that number of hours or period of time. Another thing in a slide preparation is that no slide should be without a title. We know how many times we get into a conference, webinar, seminar classes, you get into the place late. If you get into any presentation late or into the class late, you see that if you don't know what they are talking about, you'll be lost. Okay, so having a title on any slide helps that person who comes in late to be able to have a full grasp of what is going on, for him not to be able, for him not to be lost in the class. So the person should be able to make out something at that point the person joined. So another important thing is for you to have a good knowledge of your topic of discussion. Why is it important? It is important because you are not supposed to overcrowd your slide. Your slide should contain only the points you'll be talking about. Those points are to keep you focused. Those points are to help you not to, those points are to help you not to derail from the main thing you are talking about in practice. Very important. So for instance, we'll be looking at the outline and slide structure. You know, we are still talking on tips on PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so the first thing as a presenter is that apart from the title slide, your second or third slide should contain the presentation outlines. As I said earlier, where you put down your points, the points of what you want to talk about. Some call it contents, others overview or presentation outline. It is very, very important. The next thing you have to do is to ensure that you show a point at a time. Show one point at a time. It's very, very important that you show a point at a time, as this will help you carry your class along, preventing your class from being carried away or reading the slide ahead of you and not listening to you. And with that, the attention is sustained. So going to the next slide, we'll be considering the outlook of a good and a bad slide. What makes a slide good and what makes it bad, okay? As you can see from looking at this slide, as a presenter or a student in a class, what do you notice? Looking at this slide, you will notice that you are struggling to read the slide as a presenter, and the student also is struggling to make out meaning from this type of slide. This will pull the attention of the student from you who is speaking, from you who is presenting, from you who is the lecturer, making that slide to take the center stage. Okay, so avoid too many words on the slide. So this structure, if you're preparing any presentation and your presentation is looking this way, your slide is bad. Okay, here now you can see that this font is good. when we talk about font, we are talking about the type of letters we use to form our words. Okay, so the style, size, and color of fonts can make your slide readable or unreadable. So as like minimum size of 24-point units or higher should be used for the body of the slide. When you're forming the words on the body of the slides, you should use nothing less than 24 points and higher. Then for the titles, it should be from 32 upwards. Anything less than this will be unreadable. And ensure you use standard fonts. Don't use decorative type of fonts. Okay. Another thing is don't use more than 2 fonts per slide. For the title, one for the title and the other for the body. Most slides, if you're taking up a template from a source point, you discover that is how slides has been designed to be. Then here, you see this font is bad because it is too small. You cannot even read the first sentence that is up there. And capitalize only when necessary. You can use it for titles, but don't use complicated fonts. Most of the time, as you can see an example on the slide, it takes longer time to read and understand. So here we are considering the color. Here now, look at the color of the background and the color of the font. You should make sure that whatever color of background or font you're using, make sure that there's a contrast. Make sure the font stands out on the background. If you must use color, just use it to emphasize. If you want to use it, just use it to emphasize a point. But it's not, you're not supposed to just use it anyhow, because you are not talking to children, you're talking to adults, and they are in academic environment. And consider the color of this slide. The is too strong. If you look at there's a first statement of the slide, because the color is not contrasting with the background, you see that you can't even make any sense out of what is written there. Okay, ensure your font contrast stands out on your background. Then using color for decoration is very distracting and very, very annoying. Using a different color for each point is unnecessary. Using a different color for secondary point is also unnecessary. And trying to be creative can also be bad. I think this should be better when you're preparing something for those in a nursery or primary or grade classes. So in the next slide, we are seeing a background that is very good. You see that this background is not as strong as the previous one. It is attractive and simple. So whenever you're preparing your presentation, ensure you use an attractive but simple background. Use backgrounds that are not strong, as I've said earlier on, and ensure you use the same background consistently throughout your presentation. This is a bad background. This background is bad. Avoid this kind of background. It can be distracting and difficult to read from. Be consistent with your background. This movement of this movement you saw now, supposing the animation is on, you'll be able to hear the sound. It made a sound that is very unnecessary. You would have been able to understand why we say that many times teaching in mental education. Therefore, you need to bring them in, because to research, explanation time, by 40% and increases their ability to remember points by 50%. They are easy to understand. And another thing that is very important is that don't forget to label. As you can slide the graph, it is well labeled. You can be able to read, comprehend. What makes it bad? It is not titled. The shading is distracting. The fonts are too small, and these grid lines are unnecessary. The next thing you have to do and have at the back of your mind or know what you must do is to check for spelling and grammar error. Proofread your slides. Your slide, as you can see in the slide, spelling one of the letters here. If there's any grammar errors, have to correct. How you check your slide, or you use of your before you put it on the slide. There's in Microsoft Point. When you click on the review button, you'll be able to see all the spelling check. That's it. It will be able to help you make sure there is no spelling mistakes. Remember to conclude. Don't just finish talking to the students and you leave. It's unnecessary. Use effective and strong closing. Your audience will likely remember your last words. If you're not going to use that, then use conclusion slide. Be able to put up a slide where you have summarized the main points of your discussion for the day. And you can as well suggest future avenues of research or reading, or you give an assignment. Avoid abrupt ending. Okay, so finally, research has shown that we remember 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, 50% of what we hear and what we see and hear, and 70% of what we discuss with others. If that is the case, you have to understand the place of teaching and bringing in presentation software. Okay, so yes, you have to understand the place of teaching and bringing in presentation software. So I'll be wrapping up by reminding us why we are here, one of which is to inform development in our various practices and profession, especially those of us who are engaged in the teaching of allied dental students or in any other profession. Let us do well to remember to bring in presentation software into our teaching. Remember to abide by the rules or tips, as this will help you to prepare engaging slides that you'll be able to use to pass across the information you want to pass across to your students, and it will help you to avoid mistakes. So I encourage us to embellish our skills in the use of presentation software. I remember a professor once said that teaching academic presentation is not only about you standing in front of the class and making speeches and talking to the students. There is need for you to inculcate other elements that will help you to drive home your points. And that's one of the elements, one of the technology that is on ground to help you to bring in all these things, whether things that you would like to combine with your speaking, visual elements, demonstrations, scenarios, all those things are this presentation software. Another thing is for you to be able to discipline yourself enough to be able to know and understand the workings and the functions of the software. The use of presentation software. So I'm concluding by saying engage presentation software in your teaching. Try to explore them and experience the beauty of teaching and learning and impacting knowledge that is engaging, is inspiring, and easy.